The call arrived at 7:32 a.m. on November 10th, just as I was analyzing the score for Silas's Fifth Symphony in my apartment overlooking Prospect Park. "Julian, it's Dad." Morning, I set down my baton, keeping my place in the score. "What's this about Thanksgiving? Your brother and I were talking, and we think it might be better if you sit this one out this year." I froze. "What?" "Marcus's wife just finalized a $200 million real estate deal in Queens. It's the biggest accomplishment of her career. She's bringing her business partners to Thanksgiving. These are high-profile individuals, CEOs, investors, city planning commissioners." He paused. "You earn your living playing music, Julian. It's simply not the same league. We want to avoid any awkwardness regarding the disparity in your careers." I glanced at the Silas score on my music stand, then at my study wall lined with recordings, awards, and framed programs from the Kimmel Center, the Vienna Musikverein, and the Kennedy Center. I looked at my 3 Grammy nomination certificates, displayed in modest frames. "I conduct music," I said quietly. "There is a distinction. Conducting, playing, whatever. The point is, Marcus's wife is a major power player in New York real estate. You're in the arts. They're just different tiers of success." He sighed. "Don't make this difficult. We'll do something later, just us, maybe in December. Does Marcus know you're calling?" It was his idea. He doesn't want Alina to feel like she has to engage in small talk with someone outside her professional sphere. Alina Sterling, my brother's wife of 2 years. I had met her exactly 3 times, at their engagement party, the wedding, and one family dinner 6 months ago, where she had spent the entire evening on her phone negotiating a property deal. Each time Marcus introduced me, he used the same phrasing. "This is my brother, Julian. He's a musician. Not a conductor, not the music director of the New York City Symphony Orchestra, just a musician." "Understood," I said. "Enjoy your Thanksgiving." "Don't be like that." I hung up. For a long time, I just sat there, staring at the score. Mahler's Fifth, one of the most intricate and emotionally devastating works in the symphonic repertoire. I had spent 3 months preparing it for our concert series, scheduled from November 20th through December 8th. The New York City Symphony Orchestra, 96 musicians under my baton, a $47 million annual budget, a subscription base of 12,000 season ticket holders, an international tour to San Francisco, Seattle, Washington, D.C., and New Orleans. And my father thought I played music. My phone buzzed. A text from Marcus. "Dad told you about Thanksgiving. Sorry it has to be this way. Alina S. worked incredibly hard for this deal. We can't have any distractions." "I understand," I replied. I didn't elaborate. I didn't offer an explanation or try to defend myself. I had realized years ago that my family lacked the capacity to understand what I did. When I was appointed assistant conductor of the Philadelphia Symphony at 26, Mom asked when I would land a real job with benefits. When I was named music director of the New York City Symphony at 32, Dad asked if the position included a retirement plan. To them, classical music wasn't reality. It was a hobby that had somehow metastasized into a career, but not a serious one. Not like Marcus's work in finance, which they understood and could boast about to their social circle. I turned back to the Mahler score, casting aside the family drama. The symphony required my absolute focus. November 20th arrived. It was opening night for our Mahler cycle, and the concert hall was sold out. All 2,738 seats were occupied by season ticket holders, music critics, students, and tourists who had timed their New York visits around this performance. I stood in my dressing room, fixing my white tie in the mirror. The pre-show nerves were always present, regardless of how often I had done this. The weight of knowing that 96 musicians and nearly 3,000 audience members were relying on me to breathe life into Silas's vision. My assistant conductor, Maya Vance, knocked and entered. "The house is packed. The Times critic is here, as is the one from the Wall Street Journal." She smiled. "Also, your brother called the box office. He and his wife were wondering if there were any tickets left." I turned. "What?" "They tried to buy tickets for tonight. It's sold out, obviously." The box office told them the entire run has been sold out for 6 weeks. Did they leave a message? Just that they were disappointed. They wanted to see what you do. Maya raised an eyebrow. I didn't know you had a brother. Apparently, neither did he. At 8:00 p.m., I walked onto the stage. The audience applauded. I bowed, turned toward the orchestra, and raised my baton. For the next 82 minutes, nothing existed but the music, Mahler's journey from the funeral march to transcendent love. The orchestra responded to every gesture, every subtle shift in tempo and dynamics. We had rehearsed for weeks, and it was evident. This was our craft. Together, we brought one of humanity's greatest artistic achievements to life. When the final notes faded, there was silence, then the audience erupted into a standing ovation. Cheers filled the hall. I bowed and gestured for the orchestra to rise, acknowledging the principals. This was my life. This was what my father dismissed as playing music. The reviews were extraordinary. The Times called it a transcendent interpretation that reminds us why Mahler matters. The journal lauded the orchestra's precision and emotional depth under Sullivan's nuanced direction. On November 23, 2 days before Thanksgiving, I received an email from the orchestra's development director, Catherine Sterling. Subject: Interesting development. Julian, heads up. We received a call this afternoon from Alina Chin at Chin Development Group. She's requesting a private tour of the concert hall and a meeting with you. She mentioned she's a potential major donor. Her assistant said she has front row season tickets and has attended several of our concerts. Should I schedule something? Alina, my brother's wife, who apparently had season tickets. Schedule it for Monday, November 27th at 2 p.m. I'm curious, I responded. Patricia replied immediately, will do. She sounded very eager to meet you. That evening, Marcus called. Julian, hey, listen, about Thanksgiving, it's fine. It's not fine. Alina is furious with me. She found out I told you not to come and she's barely speaking to me. Why does she care? I don't know, she won't explain. She just keeps calling me an idiot and saying I don't pay attention. He sounded genuinely baffled. Did you two meet somewhere? Does she know you somehow? I've met her 3 times, at your engagement party, your wedding, and that dinner in May. Right, so what's her problem? Maybe you should ask her. I tried. She locked herself in her office and won't come out. He paused. Can you call her? Smooth this over. No, Marcus, come on, she's my wife. I don't want her angry at me over Thanksgiving. Then you should have considered that before you uninvited me. I kept my voice neutral. I have a rehearsal, I need to go. Julian. I hung up. Monday, November 27th, was cold and gray. I spent the morning in rehearsals, working with the orchestra on Brahms's 4th Symphony for our December program. At 1:45 p.m., I headed to my office to prepare for Alina's visit. Patricia met me outside my door. She's early, she's been here since 1:30, she's in the conference room with her business partner. Business partner, Sloan Montgomery, she's the COO of Chin Development Group. Patricia lowered her voice. Julian, I looked them up. They just closed a $200 million mixed-use development in Queens. They're major players in New York real estate. If Alina becomes a donor, we're talking about a potential 7-figure contribution. I nodded and entered the conference room. Alina was standing, examining the framed photographs on the walls. The orchestra on tour in Vienna, a shot of me conducting at the proms in Washington, D.C., and the orchestra recording our Grammy-nominated Ives cycle. She turned as I walked in. She was as polished as ever, expensive suit, perfect hair, the demeanor of someone accustomed to high-stakes negotiations. Maestro Sullivan, she said, thank you for finding the time. Maestro, not Julian nor my husband's brother. The formal title, of course. And you must be Ms. Rodriguez. Lauren Rodriguez stood and shook my hand. She was younger than Alina, in her early 30s, with sharp eyes and a firm grip. Mr. Sullivan, it's an honor. We're both huge fans of the orchestra. Please have a seat. I took the chair opposite them. Patricia mentioned that you're interested in discussing a donation. Alina and Lauren exchanged a glance. We are, Alina said, but first, I need to address something personal. You're Marcus's brother. I am the brother he uninvited from Thanksgiving, because you play music, And I'm a real estate developer. I didn't add anything else. The brother he's described to me throughout our 3-year relationship as a kind of drifter who never settled into a career and does orchestra stuff as a hobby. Lauren's eyes widened. She glanced at me, then at the photographs on the walls, and finally back at Alina. I have season tickets, Alina continued. Front row, center. I've attended the New York City Symphony for 5 years. I never miss a performance. She pulled a program from her bag, the one from Arcila's concert. When I saw the conductor's name 3 years ago, Julian Sullivan, I asked Marcus if it was the same Julian Sullivan who was his brother. He said, no, that couldn't be. My brother just plays in local orchestras for extra cash. The room grew very quiet. I believed him, Alina said. Why wouldn't I? He's my husband. When he talked about his brother who played music, I pictured someone doing wedding gigs, teaching piano lessons, or maybe playing in community bands, not the music director of one of the finest orchestras in the country. Lauren was staring at her. Alina, you've dragged me to these concerts for 2 years. You've made me sit through Sielas, Bruckner, and Gershwin. You've explained leitmotifs, sonata form, and the nuances between Baroque and Romantic conducting styles. I know. And all that time, the conductor was your husband's brother. Apparently so. Lauren turned to me. Your brother is an idiot. Despite everything, I smiled. So I'm learning. Alina did not smile. Last week, at the Thanksgiving dinner you weren't invited to, my business partner, Paige, was there. She mentioned seeing a fantastic symphony concert the weekend before. I said I'd been to the same one, the Sela's Fifth. We started discussing it, talking about how brilliant the conductor was, how the fourth movement made me cry. She paused. Marcus was sitting right there. He didn't say a word. He didn't mention that the conductor was his brother. He just sat there while Paige and I discussed your interpretation of Sela's, your 3 Grammy nominations, and the international tour. Alina's voice was taut with anger. And when Paige left, I asked Marcus why he hadn't mentioned you. He said, why would I? It's not like Julian's doing anything important. It's just music. Alina, I said quietly, you don't need to do this. Yes, I do, because I went home and looked you up. Really, looked me up. Your CV, your recordings, your reviews, your career trajectory. You studied at Juilliard and Curtis. You won the Gershwin conducting competition at 24. You've guest conducted the San Francisco Philharmonic, the Vienna Philharmonic, and the Washington, D.C. Symphony. You've recorded 12 albums. You're currently being considered for music director positions in Houston and Atlanta. Lauren was frantically pulling out her phone. Holy shit, she muttered while reading. 3 Grammy nominations. You conducted at the Nobel Prize ceremony. You've worked with Yo-Yo Ma and Renee Elise Goldsberry. Alina, this is insane. I know. Alina looked at me. Your brother has spent 3 years telling me his younger brother is a struggling musician who can't hold down a real job. Meanwhile, you're one of the most respected conductors in the world. I wouldn't say the world. The Financial Times called you the most exciting conductor of his generation. The Guardian said your Ives cycle was definitive. You were on the cover of Gramophone magazine. She leaned forward. How does your own brother not know this? Because he's never asked. Because my family believes classical music is a nice hobby, not a legitimate career. Because they can't brag about what I do at cocktail parties. I kept my voice steady. I stopped trying to explain myself to them years ago. So you just let them think you're a failure. I let them think whatever makes them comfortable. I have a career I'm proud of. I have musicians who trust me. I have audiences who connect with the music we create together. I don't need my family's validation. But you deserve it, Lauren interjected. You deserve to have your brother say, my younger brother is the music director of the New York City Symphony, instead of my brother plays music. Deserve and receive are very different things. Alina remained silent for a long moment. I'm leaving him? I looked up sharply. What? I can't be married to someone who doesn't see his own brother clearly. Someone who dismisses your achievements because they don't fit his narrow definition of success. Someone who is so threatened by your talent that he pretends you don't exist professionally. She stood. I've been thinking about it since Thanksgiving, ever since I realized the man I married is either willfully ignorant or deliberately cruel. Either way, it's not something I can live with. Alina, you don't have to make that decision because of me. It's not just you, it's what you represent. If Marcus can be this dismissive of his own brother's extraordinary career, what else is he dismissive of? My work, my accomplishments, other people's value. She picked up her bag. I close $200 million deals. I'm good at reading people and understanding motivations. And I completely miss the fact that my husband is fundamentally unable to see value in anything that isn't conventionally prestigious. Lauren stood as well. We should go. But Julian, Maestro Sullivan, we'd still like to discuss a donation. Separate from all this family drama, the orchestra deserves support. I appreciate that. At the door, Alina turned back. For what it's worth, your Mahler was extraordinary. The way you brought out the tension between the funeral march and the adagietto, the architecture of the entire symphony, it was masterful. I've seen you conduct 20 times, and you get better every performance. Thank you, that means a lot. It should mean a lot coming from your family, too. But since it doesn't, know that your actual audience sees you and we appreciate what you do. They left. I sat alone in the conference room, processing what had just occurred. My brother's wife, whom I had met only 3 times and barely knew, saw my work more clearly than my own family, and she was leaving him over it. That evening, Marcus called 17 times. I didn't answer. Finally, a text arrived. Marcus. Alina moved out. She says we're getting a divorce. She won't tell me why. Did you say something to her? What happened at that meeting? I stared at the text for a long time, then I called him back. Julian, thank God. What did you say to Alina? Nothing about your marriage. We discussed a potential donation to the orchestra. A donation? Why would she donate to your orchestra? Because she has season tickets. Front row, center. She's been attending our concerts for 5 years. Silence. Marcus. That's not possible. She goes to the Symphony, yeah, but she never mentioned you. Why would she? You told her I wasn't the conductor. You told her Julian Sullivan, the conductor, was a different person. He stopped. I didn't think it was you. Sullivan is that uncommon a name. Did you ever check? Did you ever Google me? Look at the orchestra's website. Ask me directly. Why would I? You said you worked with orchestras. I assumed you meant as a musician, violin or something. I conduct orchestras, Marcus. I've been a conductor for 12 years. I've been music director of the New York City Symphony for 6 years. Before that, I was assistant conductor in Philadelphia. Music director. That's like a manager. I laughed, though there was no humor in it. It means I'm the artistic leader of a major symphony orchestra. I choose the repertoire, hire the musicians, conduct all the major concerts, and represent the orchestra internationally. It's one of the most prestigious conducting positions in America. But you're only 38. How can you be in charge of an entire orchestra? Because I'm good at what I do, because I've studied for 20 years, because I've dedicated my entire adult life to this work. More silence. Alina's business partner said something at the meeting, Marcus said slowly. She said, I was an idiot for not knowing. Is that why Alina left? Because I didn't know about your job. She left because of what your ignorance represents. Your inability to see value in anything that doesn't fit your definition of success. That's not fair. I value music. I listen to music all the time. You consume music. You don't value the people who create it. You don't see their work as real or important. I paused. You told Dad to uninvite me from Thanksgiving because Alina's real estate deal was more important than what I do. You didn't even consider that what I do might matter. Real estate is tangible, buildings, money, jobs created. Music is just entertainment. Music is culture. It's history. It's human emotion distilled into sound. It's Ives writing his 9th symphony while completely deaf because he had something to say about human brotherhood. It's Gershwin encoding resistance to McCarthy into his symphonies. It's Sela's transforming personal tragedy into transcendent art. My voice rose slightly. What I do matters, Marcus. It matters to the 3,000 people who come to our concerts. It matters to the students who find meaning in music. It matters to the composers whose work we preserve and interpret. Just because you don't understand it doesn't make it less valuable. I never said it wasn't valuable. You've said it constantly. Every time you introduced me as a musician instead of by my actual title. Every time you changed the subject when I talked about my work. Every time you dismissed my career as less important than yours. Every single time. I heard him breathing on the other end of the line. What do I do? He asked eventually, how do I fix this? I don't know if you can, not with Alina, not with me. This isn't about one conversation or one apology, it's about fundamental respect. Either you respect what I do or you don't. I want to understand. Then come to a concert. Sit in the audience. Really listen. Try to understand what we're creating. The performances are sold out. I tried to get tickets, but I'll leave too, it will call. Thursday night, December 7th. Brahms's Fourth Symphony. Come alone or bring someone, I don't care. But if you come to listen. Not to check a box, not to say you tried, but to actually engage with the music. Okay, he said quietly, I'll be there. December 7th arrived. The concert hall was packed again, our subscription base plus the additional single tickets we had released. I had left 2 tickets at Will Call under Marcus's name. I had no idea if he would actually show up. I stood in the wings, waiting for my cue. Grace found me. Your brother is here. Row F center, he brought your father. My stomach tightened. Dad is here. Apparently, Marcus called him and said he needed to see what you do. I peered out through the gap in the curtain. There they were, Marcus in a suit, looking uncomfortable, and Dad next to him, scanning the program with a puzzled expression. You okay? Grace asked. Yeah, it doesn't change anything. The music is the music regardless of who is watching. That's the spirit. At 8:00 p.m., I walked onto the stage. I didn't look at the audience as I bowed. I turned toward the orchestra, raised my baton, and we began. Brahms's Fourth, one of the greatest symphonies ever written, tragic, noble, intellectually rigorous. The finale is a passacaglia, a variation form built over a repeating bass line that swells with inexorable logic to a devastating conclusion. We had rehearsed it for weeks. The orchestra was magnificent. Every phrase was shaped, every dynamic calibrated, every structural connection made clear. This was the reason I did this work. Those moments when 96 musicians and 1 conductor merge into a single instrument, and when Brahms's vision from 1885 comes alive in 2024. The final chords faded, leaving a vacuum of silence before the applause erupted, louder and more sustained than anything I had previously experienced. As I took a standing ovation, I bowed to the musicians, then to the house, and for the first time in my career, I locked eyes with my family. Marcus was on his feet, his face streaked with tears. My father sat motionless, his expression one of pure bewilderment. Following the performance and the obligatory reception with the board, I found them waiting by my dressing room. Julian, I had no idea, my father began. I've never witnessed anything like it. That's co-planned. One of the great symphonies. No, I mean yes, but watching you up there, the way the orchestra hung on your every movement, the way you sculpted the sound. That isn't just playing, that's something else entirely. It's conducting, I said simply. Marcus stepped forward. Can I speak with you privately? My father nodded and stepped down the corridor. Marcus and I remained in the quiet backstage area, hemmed in by instrument cases and music stands. I didn't understand, Marcus confessed. I thought I did, but I was wrong. Sitting out there, watching you work, hearing what you create, Julian, I've never felt this way listening to music. I've never felt this from anything. It's co-planned and 96 brilliant musicians, sure, but it's you, too, the way you synthesized it all, the way you communicated through nothing but your hands and your posture, the way they watched you, trusted you. He wiped his eyes. I'm sorry. I am so damn sorry for dismissing this, for failing to see the reality of your work, for choosing to feel threatened by it rather than proud. Why were you threatened? I asked. He considered this. Because you're brilliant at something that eludes me. You possess a gift, a talent, a career that exists entirely outside my frame of reference. It was easier to brush it aside than to admit my younger brother had surpassed me in ways I couldn't even quantify. I didn't surpass you, Marcus. We just followed different roads. But your road carries more weight. What you did tonight will endure. People will listen to your recordings 50 years from now. My work, The mergers, the acquisitions, the financial advice, it matters to my clients, but it doesn't matter to the world." He let out a bitter laugh. Alina saw it. She understood that my insecurity about my own work forced me to minimize yours. That's why she left. Have you spoken to her? She's agreed to coffee next week. She needs to see if I'm capable of change or just prone to guilt. Am I capable of change? I don't know, I replied. That's up to you. My father reappeared. Julian, can I take you both to dinner? I want to hear about your work, truly hear about it. I want to understand what I've been overlooking. I almost declined. I nearly told them I had prior commitments, that it was too late, that a single concert couldn't undo years of apathy. But looking at them, Marcus with his tear-stained face, my father with his genuine confusion and dawning realization, I glimpsed the possibility of something new. It wasn't the relationship we once had, built on their refusal to see me, but something grounded in their actual curiosity. All right, I said, dinner. But I'm choosing the place. We settled into a quiet Italian restaurant near the music center. Over pasta and wine, I walked them through my career, not just the milestones, but the entire trajectory. I spoke of my years at Juilliard, the grueling climb through assistant conducting positions, the breakthrough at the Gershwin competition, and the first time a professional orchestra truly clicked under my baton. I told them about my tenure in Philadelphia, the art of programming a season, and the sheer terror of accepting the music director position in New York. I shared the realities of the recordings, the tour, the Grammy nominations that hadn't won but meant everything, and the privilege of conducting at the Nobel ceremony alongside legends who had become my peers. My father listened with rapt attention. When you were appointed in New York, how old were you? 32. That's young for a post like that. Very young. Most music directors don't reach that level until their 50s or 60s. I was fortunate, and I worked incredibly hard. I wish I'd known, he said quietly. I wish I'd been there to celebrate with you, to be proud of you then, not just now. You can be proud now, I said. Provided you actually want to learn what I do. I do. God, Julian, watching you tonight was like watching a master artisan. The precision, the emotion, the intelligence behind every motion. I've never seen anything like it. Marcus, who had been silent, finally spoke. Alina knew. She's been attending your concerts for 5 years. She tried to tell me in her way. She'd come home talking about how brilliant the conductor was, how moved she felt, and I didn't listen. I couldn't associate it with you because I had already decided you weren't the successful one. You constructed a narrative where you were the accomplished brother and I was the artistic drifter, I said. Anything that challenged that story, you discarded. Yes, he admitted, and I'm sorry. But Julian, I want to change that. I want to see you truly. Then you have to put in the work, I said. Attend more concerts, study the music, ask me questions. Don't just sit in your guilt, engage with my life. I will, I promise. My father set down his glass. I have a confession. Your mother and I stopped attending your early performances because we didn't understand what we were hearing. Classical music felt intimidating, even boring. We were too lazy to learn how to appreciate it, so we simply quit going. You could have asked me, I said. I would have helped you understand. I know, but it was easier to dismiss it than to acknowledge our ignorance. It was easier to pretend your work lacked value than to do the work of learning why it was so profound. That is inexcusable. You deserved better from us. We talked until the restaurant shuttered its doors. We discussed music, my upcoming season, the Atlanta Philharmonic's interest in my services, and the recording contract we'd recently signed for an Ives cycle. For the first time in my adult life, my family listened. They really listened. 2 weeks later, Alina called. Julian, it's Alina. Do you have a moment? Of course. Marcus mentioned you had dinner with him and your father. He said you talked about your work and that they actually listened. They did. Whether it sticks is another matter. Fair enough. She paused. I wanted to let you know Marcus and I are going to try counseling. I'm not moving back in and I'm making no promises, but I need to see if he's capable of real change, of seeing people clearly, including you. That's a good sign. I think so. But Julian, I also wanted to apologize. I should have spoken up sooner. When I realized you were the conductor, I should have told Marcus immediately. Instead, I let it slide because it felt easier than confronting his blind spots. You didn't owe me that. Maybe not. But I owe it to myself to be with someone who sees the world clearly, who values actual accomplishments rather than those that fit his preconceptions. She laughed softly. And I really owe it to myself to be with someone who acknowledges his own brother is one of the finest conductors in America. I wouldn't go that far. The San Francisco Philharmonic doesn't invite just anyone to guest conduct. Neither does Vienna. You've earned your reputation. Your family is just finally catching up. Good, because you deserve that. She paused. Lauren and I are serious about the donation. We're planning on $2 million over 5 years for your educational programs and the recording fund. I was silent for a moment. $2 million was transformative for the orchestra. That's incredibly generous. It's an investment in what matters. And Julian, thank you. For what? For being so good at what you do that a real estate developer who knew nothing about classical music became obsessed with it. You changed how I hear music, how I understand it, and what I gain from it. That's worth supporting. Christmas arrived. For the first time in years, I visited my parents' home. Marcus was there, tentative but trying. My father had bought a stack of books on classical music and was reading them diligently. Mom had listened to all our recordings and peppered me with questions about specific interpretations. It was awkward, certainly. They didn't suddenly grasp everything about my world. They still asked naive questions and struggled to discern why certain pieces were pivotal or what made one performance superior to another. But they were trying, and that was progress. On Christmas Eve, Marcus pulled me aside. Alina might come back. The counselor says we're making strides. She says I'm learning to look beyond my own narrow definition of success. That's good. It's because of you. Confronting how profoundly I failed to see you made me realize how many other things I've been blind to, how many people I've dismissed and achievements I've minimized because they didn't fit my template. I'm glad something positive came from it. Julian, I need to ask you something. About your concerts, can I keep coming? Even if things don't work out with Alina, can I become someone who understands what you do? I thought about it, the years of family who refused to see me, who didn't value my path, who treated me as an outsider, and then I thought of Marcus sitting in that concert hall, weeping during Brahms, finally witnessing the work I'd been doing all along. Yes, I said, come to the concerts. Learn about the music. Ask me questions. I'll help you understand. Thank you, he paused. For what it's worth, I'm proud of you. I should have said it years ago, but I'm saying it now. I'm proud of what you've built, what you've achieved. You're remarkable. It was the sentiment I'd craved for years. Yet hearing it now after everything, it felt different. Not exactly hollow, but incomplete, like receiving applause after the house lights had already gone up. Thanks, I said. That means something. But not enough, he observed. Not yet, but maybe eventually. March brought the news I'd been anticipating. The Atlanta Philharmonic offered me the music director position, a 5-year contract with an extension option. It was one of the premier orchestras in the world. Accepting it meant leaving New York, the orchestra I had spent 6 years shaping, and the city I'd come to call home. But it also promised growth, new challenges, and the next chapter of my career. I called a family dinner to share the update. Atlanta, Mom asked, but you're finally established in New York. I've been in New York for 6 years, I explained. This is the natural next step. My father checked his phone. I'm looking at the LA Philharmonic website. That's a major position. One of the 5 most prestigious orchestras in the country. I confirmed the news. Marcus set down his fork. You're going to take it. I am. When do you start? Next season. September 2025. We sat in silence for a moment before my father raised his glass. To Julian, to his remarkable career, and to his continued success in Atlanta. To Julian, my mother and Marcus echoed. I drank, struck by the oddity of the moment, my family actually celebrating my success, seeing it clearly, grasping its weight. It had taken 38 years, a fractured relationship, and a serendipitous night in a concert hall, but they were finally paying attention. My final concert as music director of the New York City Symphony was August 15, 2025. We performed Ives's Ninth, a symphony about human brotherhood, the triumph of joy over adversity and transcendence. The hall was sold out, with people crowding the aisles. There were long-time subscribers, musicians, critics, students, and in the fourth row, center, my parents, Marcus and Alina, who had reunited with Marcus after 10 months of therapy. I conducted the ninth as if it were my last opportunity on Earth. In that hall, with that specific ensemble, it essentially was. This was our farewell. The final movement, Ode to Joy, reached its peak, the choir, the soloists, the full orchestra building to that final, transcendent swell. All of humanity united in music. When it concluded, the audience rose in unison. Flowers were tossed from the balcony. The orchestra stood and applauded, and I bowed to them, the musicians who had trusted me and given everything to the music. I looked toward my family. All four of them were weeping. Marcus mouthed the words, "I'm proud of you." This time, the sentiment didn't feel hollow. It felt earned. Not because I had finally reached a level of success that forced them to notice, but because they had finally done the work to understand what that success actually meant in my world. Lowe's angels greeted me with sunshine and the formidable challenge of one of the world's great orchestras. The work was exhilarating, exhausting, and exactly what I required. Marcus and Alina flew out for my inaugural concert, as did my parents. They sat in the Walt Disney Concert Hall, listening to me conduct Mahler's second, The Resurrection. After the performance, during the reception, a board member approached my father. "Mr. Sullivan, you must be so proud. Your son is extraordinary." "I am proud," my father replied, "and I'm grateful that I finally understand why I should be." Later, standing on the terrace overlooking the city lights, Marcus found me. "You know what Alina said during the concert. She said, this is what he was doing all those years. We just didn't pay attention. This level of artistry, this gravity, we missed it." "You see it now," I said. "Yeah, finally." He looked out at the skyline. "I wish I'd seen it sooner. I wish I'd been there for all of it." "You can't change the past, Marcus. You're here now, that's what matters." "Is it enough, me being here now?" I thought about the years of invisibility, the family dinners where my life's work was treated as a triviality, the achievements that went unrecognized, the holiday dinners where I felt like a stranger. And then I thought of Marcus navigating the hard work of self-reflection, reading, learning, and consistently showing up. "It's a start," I said, "and starts matter." We stood there together, my brother and I, overlooking the city where I would begin the next chapter of my life. It was a chapter where my family would finally see me, understand me, and value me, not because they had to, but because they had chosen to learn. And that, finally, was enough.